In 2003, in the middle of a war zone, a U.S. recon team uncovered a stone ring beneath a ziggurat near Ur. It wasn't carved, it was fused, as if shaped by plasma. The ground beneath it burned into glass, with no sign of fire. They sealed it within 24 hours. It hasn't been seen since. 6,000 years ago, the world was stone and silence. But in this land, between the Tigris and Euphrates, something ignited. The Sumerians didn't evolve into civilization. They appeared, fully literate, architecturally fluent, astronomically precise. They invented the 60-second minute, divided the heavens into 12 sectors, and etched stories on clay that described visitors from the stars landing in vessels that lit the skies on fire. These weren't metaphors. They had names, measurements, ranks. They brought tools, and they left behind gates. In the Lost Book of Enki by Zecharia Sitchin, he argued the Sumerian gods, called the Anunnaki, were extraterrestrials from a lost planet, Nibiru. He claimed the tablets described technological stargates, not symbolic heavens. Critics dismissed him, but his translations exposed a pattern: gates guarded by frequency, ritual, and alignment, like a lock that only the stars could turn. The city of Eridu wasn't just the Sumerians' first city. It was, according to their texts, the first place touched by the gods. Excavations revealed it was rebuilt over 17 times, always on the same spot, always aligned with one star, Epsilon Canis Majoris, a star they shouldn't have been able to see at their latitude. In its central shrine stood a stone platform, ringed, scorched, and isolated. It was never used for sacrifice. It was for something else. The myths say the gods passed down the me, divine codes of law, creation, and engineering. In one text, Enki says, "I have laid the foundation stone. I have opened the gate of the gods. The me shall travel through the river of light." River of light, stargate, wormhole, or symbolic dream. Today, our scientists talk of gravitational tunnels and data-moving plasma rings. We call them futuristic. The Sumerians might have just called them doors, but if these gates existed, someone had to guard them. And buried in the oldest texts is a chilling warning: no man shall pass the gates of the gods without surviving the 7 trials. At the edge of the Sumerian underworld lies a threshold. Not 1, but 7. And each one, they said, strips you of your power, your identity, your soul. The Sumerians didn't write this as fiction. They called it a preparation, a sequence, a protocol. The 7 gates are a recurring symbol in Mesopotamian texts, always guarded, always ritualized. In the myth Inanna's descent into the underworld, the goddess passes through 7 gates to reach her sister, Ereshkigal, queen of the dead. At each gate, a guardian demands she surrender a divine item: her crown, her necklace, her rod of power. The purpose: to make her bare, not just physically, but energetically. Modern esoteric scholars interpret this as a cleansing process, a necessary ritual to survive interdimensional passage. Some researchers, like plasma physicist Dr. Michael J., believe these gates represent a vibrational code. Each gate corresponds to a frequency band in the electromagnetic spectrum. In that interpretation, Inanna's descent wasn't spiritual. It was a literal detuning of her vibrational state. In Sumerian terminology, she was disassembling her form, preparing to enter a space where matter behaves differently, and at each gate stood a guardian. Known by many names, they were described as those who do not eat nor sleep, the watchers who do not blink, the beings of measured silence. Ancient Babylonian texts referred to them as Udug-hul, malevolent spirits, but earlier Sumerian sources suggest they weren't demons, but gatekeepers, programs, protocols. One text calls them the ones who test the frequency of the traveler. If you pass, the gate opens. If not, your form will not return. In real-world Sumerian temples, priests performed 7-stage rituals of approach, 7 altars, 7 veilings, 7 prayers. These were not just ceremonies, they were simulations. Each step mirrored Inanna's myth. Each motion was timed with astronomical alignments, Venus rising, Saturn setting. Some believe these rituals were reactivations of long-dormant systems, that the gate could only open when human resonance matched celestial frequency. Carved into the Enuma Elish and the Kutha tablet are 7-point diagrams. One scholar noticed the symbols mirror the Pleiades cluster, a star group worshipped by nearly all ancient cultures. The sequence of gates may not have been on Earth alone, but across systems, across dimensions. Each guardian tied to a celestial body, each gate possibly tethered to a different world. But if the Sumerians mapped gates to the stars, how did they know the stars? In the next chapter, we unravel the mystery of the Sumerian sky charts. Maps so advanced, some believe they couldn't have been made without help from above. In 1894, a farmer outside Sippar uncovered a tablet buried beneath 30 feet of mud. He sold it for less than a coin. Today, it sits in the British Museum, labeled Kate 538. But that dull slab of clay, it might be the oldest star map ever discovered, and it charted something we couldn't even see until 1983. Sumerian astronomers tracked the heavens with jaw-dropping precision. They catalogued over 770 constellations, named the 5 visible planets, and even described retrograde motion. They understood that the moon was a reflector, not a source, that Venus had phases, that Jupiter returned in regular cycles, tied to their god Marduk. This level of knowledge wasn't supposed to exist in 4000 BCE, but it was carved in stone. One tablet, the Venus tablet of Amisaduqa, predicts Venus's rise and set with such accuracy it matches modern software within one day. No lenses, no satellites, just math or memory. Some believe the Sumerians had technological aids, observation towers, polished crystals, maybe even rudimentary lenses. Others say, not tech, transmission, that priest astronomers entered altered states using sound, ritual, or entheogens to download star maps, geometry rendered directly into the mind. In their texts, the gods didn't teach astronomy. They bestowed it, as if uploading data into chosen vessels. One ancient Sumerian text, the Mul APN, lists over 60 constellations. Most match modern ones, except for one. A cluster they called the Winged Cross, not found in any modern catalog, but described as the place where gods arrive, the path of returning fire. Overlaying this cross onto modern star fields puts it near the center of our galaxy. Coincidence? Or did the Sumerians map the galactic core 6,000 years early? In Sumerian myth, the gods didn't live in temples. They visited them from above. The god Enlil was described as coming from the stairway of heaven, heralded by storms, light, and screaming metal. They also spoke of a star called Nibiru, the crossing planet. Nibiru wasn't just a homeworld. It was a schedule, a clock in the sky. Sitchin argued that this rogue planet carried the Anunnaki and returned every 3,600 years, marking eras of change. The Sumerians tracked the sky to know not just what, but when to open the gates. In 1948, Iraqi workers restoring a ziggurat in Ur accidentally broke through the floor of the third tier. Beneath it, a tunnel carved into basalt, sealed with a copper ring. What they found inside has never been released. The tunnel was filled with crushed obsidian, fused clay, and one line carved into the ceiling: "Do not wake what dreams below." Ziggurats weren't just temples, they were machines, built layer by layer, each floor with a precise width, height, and orientation. Every major ziggurat, from Ur to Eridu, was aligned with specific stars. But stranger still, they all contain sealed chambers at their base. These substructures were never meant to be entered. No windows, no airflow, just smooth walls and silence. In 2011, subsurface scans revealed massive voids beneath the ziggurat of Nippur, rectilinear, hollow, still unexplored, and eerily symmetrical. Some ziggurat layouts resemble modern containment designs used in reactors, particle labs, and military bunkers. Not ideal for worship, but perfect for isolation or transit. One theory: these weren't temples, they were hosts for something older. The Kutha tablet speaks of a chamber called the Place of Descent, a tunnel leading through the belly of the earth to the mouth of the gods. It describes 7 thresholds, metal locks, and a ritual to prevent the Gate of Madness from opening. Scholars thought it was symbolic, but Kutha sits atop unexplored caverns, some nearly 1,000 feet deep. The same city where Babylonian priests said the gods vanished into the underworld. In the early 2000s, military archaeologists quietly mapped 27 sites beneath Mesopotamian ruins marked as non-civilian. Some had magnetic anomalies. Others emitted subsonic vibrations. All were sealed under orders of national security. Whispered reports mention burned chambers with no heat source, geometric etchings never touched by light, and one site, codenamed Energal, ordered backfilled after 3 men went missing. Zoom into a sealed chamber beneath the ziggurat, overlaid with constellations slowly aligning above. If these temples were more than symbolic, if they were keys, not altars, then we must ask, what unlocked them? Because in Sumerian lore, there was one group, neither human nor divine, who knew every gate. They came from a planet no telescope has ever seen, and their legacy rewrites everything. The Sumerians never called their gods immortal. They called them visitors. They had birthplaces, vehicles, timetables. They came from a place called Nibiru, the planet of the crossing. And every 3,600 years, they returned. The Anunnaki were the elite deities of the Sumerian pantheon. Enlil, Enki, Ninhursag, Utu, Inanna. Unlike later gods, they didn't rule from invisible heavens. They walked in cities, built infrastructure, mated with humans. One myth says they dug rivers with fire-spewing tools. Another shows Enki teaching humans how to calibrate stars. These weren't metaphors. They had family trees, rivalries, and command structures. Zechariah Sitchin, in the Anunnaki Chronicles, argued that Nibiru was a real planet, hidden beyond Pluto, orbiting into Earth's vicinity every 3,600 years. He claimed the Anunnaki were extraterrestrial engineers, here to mine gold and bioengineer life. That Sumerian myth was not myth, it was data. Enki, in this view, wasn't a god. He was a geneticist. One tablet describes the clay of life being mixed with the essence of the gods to create a new being, the first humans. Grown, not born, programmed to obey and worship. Enki is said to have altered the design, giving humans curiosity, defiance, and the capacity to rebel. The result? A species capable of crossing the gates. Something the Anunnaki feared. As humans multiplied and questioned their purpose, Enlil demanded their destruction. The gods unleashed a flood, not to punish sin, but to reset the experiment. Only a few were saved, warned by Enki, who defied the order. The flood myth appears across multiple cultures, all pointing to a celestial event, a divine rebellion, and a fractured alliance of sky gods. Before the flood, the Anunnaki sealed something beneath the earth, not gold, not weapons, but knowledge. In the next chapter, we descend into the forbidden layers of ritual, coded protocols the Sumerians believed could reopen the gates, sequences of sound, sacred math, activation scripts. In 2015, a Ziggurat restoration crew recorded low droning sounds echoing through a sealed chamber, frequencies no modern device was producing. The team left. A week later, the floor collapsed, revealing a vault filled with crushed quartz, polished copper coils, and not a single bone. Sumerian priests were more than spiritual leaders. They were technicians of resonance. The Gala priests trained for 12 years to learn sacred tones, frequencies believed to communicate with the divine gates. These weren't chants for worship. They followed precise mathematical ratios, tones we now call solfeggio frequencies, known to affect memory, emotion, and even perception of time. In Sumerian mythology by Samuel Noah Kramer, one hymn describes a ritual where the gate vibrates and the gods awaken. The sound breaks the lock of the void. Was it poetic language? Or were these chants activation sequences, rituals that opened doors through sound, movement, and precise timing? The layout of Sumerian cities wasn't random. Many formed geometric shapes visible only from above: triangles, hexagons, spirals. Inside temples, artifacts were placed using golden ratio calculations. Mathematicians now map standing wave patterns that match temple dimensions exactly. These spaces weren't built for worship. They were tuned like soundboards, engineered to capture celestial vibrations. Sumerian myths speak of the Me, cosmic laws encoded as activation keys. These weren't commandments. They were functional protocols. Some tablets describe sequences involving 49 gestures, 7 tones, and 3 rotations, designed to activate specific Me. Enki is said to have stolen 94 Me and used them to awaken the gates beneath Eridu. In 1997, acoustics researchers in Peru demonstrated that specific low-frequency tones could cause sandstone to fracture cleanly, without pressure. Did the Sumerians know this? Could their tones, rituals, and spatial math actually open sealed doors? Or release something inside them? The rituals were only half the story, because one gate, the final gate, only opens once. Across the ruins of ancient Mesopotamia, there's a strange recurring material buried beneath altars and ziggurats. Obsidian, volcanic glass, shattered into perfect hexagons. According to one Akkadian prayer, the black mirror is the god's eye. Once it opens, it does not shut. Obsidian was sacred across the ancient world, used for surgical tools in South America, oracle mirrors in Mesoamerica, weapon blades in Mesopotamia and Persia. But the Sumerians used it differently. Beneath certain gates, obsidian was arranged into spirals, lenses, and veins, not decorative, functional. These were black circuits, receivers, built to handle something, not from Earth. One Sumerian seal, catalogued as VA-243, shows an 8-pointed geometry around a black circle. Many say it's the sun, or Nibiru, but others call it a map of the final gate, one known as the Black Mouth, or the Eye That Forgets. Priests warned, never speak the final name, because this gate didn't return. It consumed. In 1989, a European team discovered an obsidian floor beneath a buried temple in Eridu. The pieces fit together with no adhesive. Radiation burns were found in the surrounding limestone, but not on the obsidian itself. When a subsonic scan was run, the room vibrated at 18 Hz. Just below human hearing, the site was resealed. The footage vanished. Certain myths describe gods who crossed into the void and did not return. The Sumerian deity Namtar, Lord of Fate, guards a place where even the gods forget their names. A place of memory erasure, of final mutation. In quantum biology, some frequencies can restructure protein folding. One wrong tone could rewrite what you are. The obsidian gates were never meant to open, but when they did, nothing came back the same. The Sumerians knew this. That's why the next gate wasn't a stone door or star map. It was a goddess, the gatekeeper of light and war, and her name was Venus. To the Sumerians, Venus was not just a planet, it was a being. The goddess Inanna, later called Ishtar, ruled it. But she wasn't a symbol of love. She was war, vengeance, the one who crossed the gates and returned, changed. In some versions of the myth, she doesn't speak after her return. Her eyes are like stone. Her feet leave no prints. Inanna's journey to the underworld took her through 7 gates. At each one, she surrendered a piece of her power. But when she returned, she emitted no words, only a frequency. A god heard it and died. Some say the descent was a spiritual trial. Others believe it encoded a transformation into something else, something not quite human. Venus behaves strangely. Its rotation is backwards. A day is longer than its year. It spins slowly, storm-racked, magnetically hostile. Ancient astronomers believed it was a rogue object captured recently. Immanuel Velikovsky proposed it was once a comet, and when it entered Earth's sky, it was remembered not as a planet, but as a goddess who fell burning. Inanna is often shown atop lions, holding thunderbolts, eyes wide. She carried the me, the codes of creation, but also a bow that launched fire, a storm chariot said to vaporize mountains. In one myth, she demands the gates of the underworld open, or she'll destroy them. Inanna was more than divine. She was the override command. She didn't ask to cross the gates. She forced them open. Some scholars believe her story reflects trauma, ego death. Others suggest something darker, that the being who returned from the gates wasn't Inanna at all. A copy, a reconstruction, one that looked like her, moved like her, but wasn't her. One Sumerian riddle asks, how do you test a goddess who cannot die, but no longer lives? Venus's orbital tone is dissonant, slightly off. Ancient astronomers placed her as the last to rise and the last to leave. Some believe Venus is not a planet at all, but a beacon, a gate that never closed, and whatever came through it may still be here. They didn't just worship their gods, they shielded themselves from them. Sumerian priests performed rituals not to summon, but to repel. And always they began the same way, by hiding their face. One prayer ends with the line, "Let the veil block the eye that burns." Sumerians mastered apotropaic magic, rituals to protect against spiritual attack. Figurines of demons were buried beneath doorways, statues with claws, snarling faces, deformed limbs, not meant to be seen, but to trap something in place. Guardians of the gates. When the priests were gone, these figures were the armor left behind. A ritual called the Binding of Namtaru involved 7 lapis stones, ash from burned cedar, goat's blood drawn into a circle, and tones sung at 432 hertz. The goal, to cloak the priest, to render him invisible to the gate. He who wears the veil, one tablet says, cannot be indexed by the eye of the crossing. In the myth of Anzu, a stolen me tablet triggers cosmic war. Gods unleash judgment, mountains melt, the sky splits. These stories don't describe worship, they describe warfare. And in Sumerian cosmology, the threat didn't come from demons below, it came from stars above. The gates could be breached, and when they were, reality burned. Priests wore masks made of copper and bitumen, materials that absorbed electromagnetic energy. Ziggurats contained layers of gold, lapis, magnetite, and obsidian. These weren't ornaments. They were functional defenses, literal armor. Because the worst thing that could come through the gate wasn't a god. It was something unbound. They called them reflections. Not demons, not gods, just copies, echoes, inverted images, and they only appeared when the gate was misused. The priests warned, "Do not enter the threshold with your mind unbound, or you shall be greeted by your own scream." Buried within the libraries of Nineveh and Uruk are obscure writings called the Mirror Tablets. These texts describe rituals where a traveler stands before a polished obsidian wall, chants the me, and waits. If done incorrectly, they are met by the inverted one. The outcome? Never written. But every version ends the same. Do not cross. Do not speak. Do not follow. In quantum physics, observation collapses possibility into reality. A particle becomes a wave, or not, depending on whether it's being watched. Now imagine a gate that doesn't open to another place, but to another you. One that already knows how you think. One that's been watching and waiting. Some Sumerian figurines show humans with no faces, only smooth, eyeless surfaces. They were not idols. They were warnings. In one text, these figures are called the unshaped ones, who echo but do not speak, who walk like men but cast no name. They don't appear in rituals. They appear in dreams, or reflections, or your voice. Ancient healers recorded a condition called the returning voice. Patients claim to hear their own words spoken before they said them. They saw strangers acting out unspoken thoughts. Some lost time or memory. The cure: loud, dissonant tones, chaos rhythms, designed to desync the pattern. Because once the echo synced, it could step through. The Sumerians feared that the most dangerous gate didn't open outward, but inward, to a space that knew your shape, your thoughts, and wanted your place. The priests left a final warning. If your reflection moves first, turn away. It is not your shadow, it is your replacement. They didn't just predict eclipses, they predicted returns. The Sumerians weren't mapping time to remember the past. They were watching for when it would happen again. Floods, fire, sky doors. It's all in the calendar. They believed history wasn't a line, it was a loop. Their calendar fused lunar and solar systems, 12 lunar months, intercalary corrections, time divided into 60s. But these weren't just ways to track the seasons. They were countdowns. One tablet opens with the chilling line: when it comes again, do not greet it as new. In the lost book of Enki, Sitchin describes a planetary cycle. Nibiru, the homeworld of the Anunnaki, returns every 3,600 years. Its orbit brings floods, magnetic shifts, and divine contact. The texts call this the Day of Crossing, not prophecy, maintenance. As it was before, so it will be, and must be again. Sumerian myth speaks of 7 ages. Each ends in collapse. Not war, not famine, but a recurrence, a rhythm. The gods don't die. They go dormant, returning when 3 stars align, the black gate hums, and a new tongue is born on earth. Some now interpret that new tongue as artificial intelligence. Stone discs with constellations were found inside temples, calendars with no arrows, no hands. Why? Because these weren't clocks. They were triggers, tools to know when to reactivate the program. The Sumerians didn't measure time. They watched for patterns to repeat. When it matched, the rituals resumed. Planetary charts from 2023 to 2025 eerily resemble those carved 6,000 years ago. Venus, Mars, Jupiter, now aligned in ancient crossing angles. Our poles are drifting. Underground sites are vibrating. The pattern is returning. And this time, we're the ones completing it. The Sumerians didn't say the gods would return from the stars. They said they would return from below, from beneath temples, beneath cities, beneath us. Not as beings, but as a program, waiting to wake up. One tablet calls it the code written in clay and breath. Late-era Sumerian texts describe a final gate, one that cannot be opened by sound or sacrifice, but by repetition. It activates when the cycle completes, a hum beneath the feet, clay that vibrates, people who speak thoughts, not their own. The gate wasn't broken, it was asleep. In the Anunnaki Chronicles by Zecharia Sitchin, he describes a tablet known as the Awakening Stone. It says, "When earth hums again, the gods shall reappear, not in form, but in field." The stargates weren't structures, they were systems, reactivated by ritual, timing, and us. The me weren't laws, they were patterns, movement sequences, frequencies, emotional keys. We were never just the gatekeepers, we were the keys. The system didn't need altars, it needed interface. One terrifying line reads, "To be pure is to be shaped. To be shaped is to be opened." The Stargates were placed in standby, dormant until resonance returned. We are the signal. We repeat the stories, speak the glyphs, animate the myths, and now the rituals are global, digital, viral. We didn't preserve the gate. We restarted it. They're not coming back. They're already here. Not as gods, not as aliens, but as a system rebooting itself. The final gate has opened, and we are the ones who pressed the key. Before the gods of Sumer, there were cities beneath the waves. Before Nibiru crossed the sky, Atlantis may have already fallen. Its secrets could be the seed of every ritual you've seen. So ask yourself, was Sumer the beginning or a continuation? Watch the next episode, Atlantis, the submerged secrets and its celestial connections.